Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
As the saying goes, better late than never.
BC's about face. Widespread support for making masks mandatory. Also,
we could be locked down for the rest of the year. I don't know. Sit up here.
Bent out of shape. Facilities forced to close, fear they'll be left financially unfit. And
Santa is going to be behind a plexi barrier.
Making his safety list and checking it twice. The big changes for visits to Santa's workshop.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. It may not be a trend, but among the grim projections in BC's COVID-19 crisis, some of tonight's numbers are encouraging. Firstly, and sadly, there has also been another large uptick in deaths, with 10 more people dying in the past day. BC's death toll from COVID-19 now standing at 331. Hospitalizations are up again now at a record high 227. 57 of those patients are in intensive care. Active cases are also up, now over 7,100, and more than 10,000 people are being monitored. If there is any good news tonight, it's that new cases are slightly down, just 516 positive tests since yesterday's update. And Fraser Health accounts for 57% of those cases. Now, Dr. Bonnie Henry's about face on masks seems to have many people breathing a sigh of relief. The provincial health officer has always encouraged wearing them, but as Deborah Goebel reports, Henry's order yesterday making masks mandatory in BC is being widely embraced.
If there's one thing most of us agree on when it comes to trying to fight COVID, it's probably this.
We gotta know a little bit better what we gotta do, yeah.
Yesterday, Dr. Bonnie Henry announced much stricter rules around mask wearing with a new order.
This will mean mandatory wearing of masks in all indoor public and retail spaces.
But then again, it was only July when she said,
It's probably not going to help you to wear a mask out in public if you're not sick yourself.
Still, in front of the North Vancouver Walmart, most seem happy with the new rule.
I was like, that's good, because that's gonna stop, at least it's gonna help the spread a little bit.
We should wear masks so that the pandemic will go on and we can go back to normal.
Although some are questioning why it took so long.
I think because masks are one of the first primary preventions to get COVID, it would have probably slowed the spread down drastically than doing it now.
I laugh at those idiots in the States who protest.
But it's happened here too.
It's not illegal to give you an option. You are refusing to take the option.
Yeah, because the option's also illegal and we're not complying to any of that.
Back in the summer at Bowl and Books in Victoria, 5 unmasked people refused to leave.
Well, call the police then.
If you wish to escalate that, please read.
Back then, retail outlets could implement their own mandatory mask policies, but they didn't have the law behind them to back it up. Starting today, that's no longer the case.
We're thrilled.
Thrilled because now the mask policy can be enforced.
It's a relief to staff that it's a rule from the province now.
The text of the order hasn't been released yet, but our assumption is that a retailer would have the ability to call the police and that the police would be able to issue a ticket.
The Retail Council of Canada, which has been fighting for mandatory masks in BC, is also happy anti-maskers will no longer be able to argue they don't have to put one on.
We can now say with 100% certainty that that's not the case any longer. You are required to wear a mask, and we ask you to wear a mask.
I feel better. What's happened, though, particularly in stores like Walmart and Costco, is even though there's mandatory masks now, social distancing isn't being practiced anywhere near as much as it was like 4 or 5 months ago.
Something that certainly seemed to be the case at this pre-Black Friday sale this morning. In the spring, one of the reasons why the province didn't mandate mask use was concern they'd lead to a false sense of security.
I expect that the importance of physical distance is somehow behind the reluctance to impose a mask order.
Which is why it's important we all remember masks may help, But we still have to wash hands, use sanitizer, stay home, and stand apart before this is finally over. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, North Vancouver.
And still with the new restrictions, some indoor group fitness activities have been identified as high risk, and those facilities have been ordered to close. As Zara Premji reports, many of them are left wondering if they can stay financially fit.
I was awake most of last night. Just what's going to happen.
Shock, confusion, and a lot of uncertainty.
To get that news yesterday seemed like a bit of a body blow.
Indoor fitness studios like these say it's been a back and forth confusing message from the province from the beginning.
Because you had to search very hard to find what the protocols were.
With spin, including indoor cycling like tag cycling, hot yoga, and high-intensity interval training all suspended Thursday until December 7th, the businesses say they will obey the provincial order and want to contribute to flattening the curve, but it comes at a detrimental cost.
And every day that we're closed really is, one more small nail in the coffin of the business.
We've been limping along trying to stitch it together, and I think we made some good decisions in getting through it, but it's going to become more and more impossible, and we have shutdowns all around us of our peers.
Tomlinson says it feels like some businesses are being targeted.
People are still allowed to go and train hard at gyms, and the respiration is heavy in those environments. I'm not sure I'm clear on the difference there.
Coombs says there's too much yo-yoing around indoor fitness, and he just wishes there was a definitive answer to begin with.
Now to kind of reopen last week, close again this week, it's hard to then provide consistent messaging to our clientele.
How could you not have looked at it properly and then given the green light or the red light?
In the meantime, studios are taking to the online world.
We'll be hosting a 6-week winter training camp virtually.
Some even opting to start an adoption program for their bikes so riders have a chance to cycle at home and follow along online. Now, Dr. Bonnie Henry does have a message for the indoor fitness she didn't ban Thursday, though.
They are, however, placed on our watch list, and we will be watching carefully.
As for what's next, these indoor fitness studios say they will remain closed until December 7th at midnight, but they're asking if the province decides to extend to make the messaging clear and concise so they know what to do next. Zara Premji, CBC News, North Vancouver.
For his part, the Prime Minister spoke at length today about the prospect of alarmingly high COVID caseloads. He acknowledged Canadians are getting tired of the restrictions and that Christmas gatherings are all but impossible. But he's urging everyone to do their part to try to stop the virus's spread.
But here's the bottom line. We have a long winter ahead. As the weather drives us indoors, we really are in danger of seeing more transmission and far too many more deaths. It'll be tough, but we know what we have to do. Wear a mask, keep your distance, download the app and use it, avoid gatherings of all sizes, and know that together, being there for each other, we will get through this.
For now, uncertainty remains over where BC's COVID-19 trajectory will go. The next couple of weeks will determine how we will be able to spend the holidays. And as Liam Britton tells us tonight, that uncertainty is affecting some places that are holiday fixtures.
A photo with Santa is a long-standing Christmas tradition for little ones.
And have you been a good boy this year?
Of all species.
What would you like for Christmas?
Santa Bob Christoffoli was getting ready for a pet photo day at Pets and Us in Delta.
We've had ducks, we've had a turtle, we've had ferrets, cats, you name it. If you've got a pet, bring it here.
But that was the Christmas past. In the Christmas present, this event is canceled in light of new public health orders.
We need to take more action.
And recent surges of COVID-19 case numbers in BC.
We made the very difficult decision to call off a 26-year tradition. Would have been 26 years this year.
Dealing with such uncertainty isn't usually taught in Santa school. And yes, that is a real thing. Rosamond Watson runs one in West Vancouver. She also books Santas through her company, Hire a Santa, mostly for private events and parties.
Normally, this time of the year, we would already be pretty much sold out for the season. But because of COVID, it's been really bad.
In BC, some malls are still offering photos with Santa. For humans. But others, like Pacific Centre in Vancouver, Richmond Centre, and Coquitlam Centre, have called off their plans. Others are still making up their minds, and some simply haven't said. For now, Brentwood Town Centre Mall in Burnaby is offering photos. Santa Michael McCain said things will be different, but the changes are necessary.
I'm comfortable with what we've done. You know, I would say that a visit with Santa Claus at Brentwood is going to be as safe and as easy as picking up a mobile order at your neighborhood Starbucks.
Some are offering virtual photo sessions with Santa this year, and Pets and Us in Delta is trying to figure out a way to do just that.
The show must go on. It's just going to be different yet again.
And that's good news for those who find meeting Santa a treat. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
That's a pretty big P.
Parents wanting to have their child immunized might want to look out for changes to their appointment or even some cancellations, with some of the nurses that administer the shots being redeployed to contact tracing teams. We talked to an Abbotsford mother who had her appointment postponed without word on when she could reschedule.
Disappointed and stressed about it. I was told that it could be weeks. My doctor thought it could even be into the new year. Like, I have no idea.
Laternis was told she'd get a call when another appointment was available. The president of the BC Nurses Union says immunization delays aren't uncommon, and on a broader scale, she's not worried just yet, but that could change.
Where my concern would be is if we have to delay immunizations for a long period of time. Fortunately, many of the things that we vaccinate for today are not prevalent in our society, but we do still hear cases of pertussis, and we do still hear cases of measles. So we do not want to allow immunizations to be delayed for too long.
Sorensen says health officials will be monitoring for rises in diseases typically covered by immunizations, and nurses will be returned to immunization teams if public health officials become concerned. We reached out to Fraser Health for comment, but we haven't heard back yet. Well, Canadians traveling to Hawaii this winter will be allowed to avoid quarantine there as long as they have proof of a negative COVID-19 test. To get the exemption under the adapted rules, passengers will need to show negative test results within 72 hours of departure. Tests must be booked with an approved lab or pharmacy. Air Canada and WestJet made the arrangements with the state of Hawaii, which will come into effect in December. The state's governor says Canadians represent the second largest international market for the Hawaiian Islands. 12 years after a man was shot and killed in Surrey, a man has been arrested and charged.
Realize the past 12 years has been tremendously difficult for James's family and friends, and we thank them for their patience. And we hope that today's news of someone finally being held accountable for his death brings some semblance of peace.
36-year-old David Fitzpatrick is now facing second-degree murder charges. In 2008, 31-year-old James Groves was shot in an industrial area of Surrey. Police later found him at his home suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to hospital but later died. Investigators are encouraging anyone with more information on the case to come forward. Well, the future Surrey police chief has been named. The city has hired the deputy chief constable from the neighboring city of Delta to head its new municipal police force, though it'll still be a while before that force is up and running. Our Tina Lovegreen joins us now live in studio for more on this. Tina?
Yes, Norm Lipinski will lead the new Surrey Police Service. He was the former deputy police chief in Delta, as you mentioned, and he began his career with the Edmonton Police Service. He served more than 30 years before leaving to become assistant commissioner with the RCMP in 2010. And today it was all messages of positivity and praise at the announcement, which included Mayor Doug McCallum, who campaigned heavily on the plan to replace Surrey's RCMP with a municipal force.
2 years ago, I knew we could deliver a new era in community safety in Surrey. And today, 2 years later, we take another major step towards a thriving and safer future for all of our citizens.
I recognize that there is much work to be done,
And I also recognize that we must continue to earn the trust of the citizens of this vibrant and growing city. This is going to take time. This is going to take a lot of work, but I'm up for it.
Launch in the spring of 2021. That's when the city's contract with the RCMP ends. But the plan has proven controversial. Members of the Safe Surrey slate have resigned and expressed concern about the rollout of all of this. And the new force has its work cut out for them. They still need to recruit about 800 members in time for the launch. And there is also the question about money. The Surrey RCMP says they've been told that the city is proposing a 25% reduction to the force's budget. That's about $45 million.
Our officer in charge did want to express his concern because it is concerning without a plan in place to address how this reduction in our budget of 25% would be implemented. He has some concerns about our ability to provide effective and adequate policing services in the city.
Meanwhile, the Surrey City Council is expected to vote on allocating $62 million for the Surrey Police Service. Council will vote on that at the end of this month. Mike?
All right, Tina Lovegreen reporting tonight. Thanks. And a controversial Chilliwack school trustee is facing backlash once again, this time for using a slur to describe staff at the Chilliwack Progress newspaper. Barry Neufeld used the offensive word in a public Facebook post where he also accused the paper of being slanted and in dire financial straits. Neufeld was commenting on a story reported by the paper earlier in November that talked about divisiveness within the school board. The longtime Chilliwack school trustee has faced criticism and calls to resign in the past for his anti-trans comments and for denouncing SOGI, the sexual orientation and gender identity program in BC schools. The Chilliwack Board of Education chair calls the comments offensive.
When you use an insult, in order for something to be insulting, the thing you're saying you have to think is bad. And for anyone involved in education to think somehow that it's okay to mock or denigrate people with disabilities is just horrifying to me.
BC Education Minister Rob Fleming says he is appalled by the comments and is looking into what the government might do to address the situation. Black Press Media, which owns the Chilliwack Progress, says it stands behind its story. Neufeld did not respond to a request for comment. Johanna Wagstaffe is here. The weekend is here. If I recall yesterday, if memory serves correct, you hinted at possibly some decent weather on Saturday, tomorrow?
It's still there.
It is? Okay. Good catch.
I'm so excited that it is sticking around. We could all use, I think, a bit of a break for the weekend forecast. It is, though, Mike, still raining tonight out here. Showers coming down on the tail end of the system that brought us on and off showers today. A very moody Friday was the word on the street on Twitter and Instagram. We do have that sun coming as we sit between two systems. Let me show you the temperatures out there right now. Pretty mild through our overnights, even though mild is still chilly. 8 right now at YVR. 8 over towards Nanaimo and Hope, 6 up towards Hope in through Hope. Showers are tracking eastward, and as they do, they are bringing some snow to the Coquihalla. We've got widespread snowfall warnings for the Coquihalla from Hope to Merritt, looking at 15 to 25 centimeters by tomorrow morning. I'll talk more about those warnings coming up. Also snow north of Terrace. So some parts of the province getting a lot of snow tonight. We are sitting between those two systems. You can see that approaching cold front coming, which will bring more rain to the south coast for Sunday. But at this point, we get to enjoy a break in between two systems. There are the snowfall warnings I was trying to get to that you can see it through the Coquihalla, and then north of Terrace, also 20 centimeters on tap. So I'll get you through the weekend and see when we can find another good sunny break. But tomorrow is looking good.
That's great news. Thanks, Joe. We'll talk to you again in a bit. Well, tonight we bring you the second part of a new series about the arts community trying to make it through this pandemic. Go Ballet has been a mainstay in Vancouver for more than 40 years. And usually at this time of year, the company would be busy preparing for its marquee event, the Nutcracker. As our Marie Zeidler tells us tonight, this year they're putting a new spin on the classic Christmas tale.
Okay, stand by. Settle, quiet, please. Ready, and action.
It's not unusual for the Go Ballet studios on Main Street to be busy at this time of year, but the cameras, cast, and crew, that's something new. This year, Go Ballet is giving Tchaikovsky's classic Christmas tale a reboot, all thanks to COVID-19.
I look forward to seeing this new way of sharing the Christmas magic, if you will, because I think we're all due for some motivation and some hope in our lives.
For more than 10 years, Go Ballet's production of The Nutcracker has been a must-see performance in Metro Vancouver. Normally, thousands of people would fill the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in December, but pandemic restrictions have made that impossible. Instead, the company is putting together a filmed version that will stream online for free for 2 weeks. That's not all that's changing. Go Ballet's director has given the story a pandemic twist.
My idea is to bring some of the present, tie it into the grandeur and the traditions of Nutcracker of the past, and then, you know, have a story of resilience and hope and look to the future.
This year's adaptation is about a young man who has given up dancing. The Nutcracker lures him back in. It's a story that's very familiar for the production's principal dancer.
I'm feeling so lucky to have gotten this role. I feel like a lot of dancers have gotten quite low with this whole pandemic, and to be able to come out and make a movie about something so hopeful it's really fun.
Alex Stonehouse returned to dance after a 7-year hiatus. He joined Go Ballet's youth ensemble this fall, and this is his first performance this year.
For organizations like Go Ballet, making it through this pandemic is about more than just survival. It's about recognizing the importance of art for the community and those who participate in it.
It draws people, it draws communities, it draws commonalities together. Just because we can't do it now doesn't mean that we can't do it forever. And as an artist, as a mentor, we need to keep thinking of that and having that to hang on to for the future.
Marie Seidler, CBC News, Vancouver.
And a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, after 4 days of deliberations, a jury has delivered its verdict in a case that shocked New Brunswick. Just ahead, what jurors decided about the man who shot and killed 4 people, including 2 police officers. And thanks for staying with us online tonight during our commercial-free live stream. Well, food insecurity is a growing concern in many parts of the country because of the pandemic. Unemployment and income loss have led to a sharp rise in the use of food banks. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the provincial government is taking a novel approach to try to ease the problem. As Adam Walsh reports, they're changing the rules for what can be donated.
Bill Burton, Sr. and Jr. are used to hunting big game.
What do you think? Looking good, boy. Looking good? Yeah.
But this is the first time they're going to donate some of their moose to local food banks.
What better way to be able to, this time of the year, everything going on, to say, hey, Dad, you know, we actually provided 70 meals this year. 70 good, high-protein, clean meat to our fellow Newfoundland and Labradorians.
This moose is already good to go for delivery. Any food bank can apply for a permit. The only rule, the meat must be processed by a licensed butcher. Debbie Wiseman is one of the advocates who pushed to allow this to happen.
I see the potential for thousands of pounds of moose meat to be donated during the hunting season. Right now, today, we are receiving hundreds of pounds just from one moose, and that's going to go to a couple of different food banks.
Newfoundland and Labrador has some of the highest food insecurity rates in the country. In St. John's, 1 in 6 households are affected. So what kind of a difference can this program make? Well, let's go and ask.
This has a huge impact for us. We're going to be able to give this meat to families, to single-parent families, and single-parent families face the biggest food insecurity in our population in the province.
At this city food bank, Jody Williams says it's a big day for them.
It just brings a little bit more food security because it's coming right from our own province.
This moose delivery is from Barry Fordham and his son. Fordham has spent years advocating for the rule change. He wants to see the program expand to local fish and berries.
There's so many different avenues that we can take, and right now we're looking up and there's the limit right there, because the sky is the limit.
Big game season ends in January, but the province says it intends to continue the program next year. Adam Walsh, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Queen and Prince Philip are celebrating a very special occasion today. It is their 73rd wedding anniversary. The royal family sharing this photo of the couple opening letters and cards from well-wishers. The one they are holding was made by their great-grandchildren, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Princess Louise. In a nod to their early days, the Queen is wearing the same brooch that she did for her honeymoon way back in 1947, 73 years. Okay, back in just a second with the latest on COVID-19 and other news from across the country. Stay right there.
Join us. Virtually, of course.
For Open House in your house.
December 4th. Book a time.
And chat with us.
CBC personalities
around the province.
Head to cbc.ca/foodbankday to sign up today.
A man who shot and killed 4 people, including 2 police officers in New Brunswick more than 2 years ago, has been found not criminally responsible for the crimes. As the CBC's Kayla Hounsell reports, a jury in Fredericton deliberated for 25 hours over 4 days before delivering its verdict.
A blue line sewn into a mask meant to protect against COVID-19, but in memory of her partner who died trying to protect the public. Jackie McLean was hoping for a different verdict.
The mental health system failed the Raymond family in the first place. And now I feel a bit as though the criminal justice system has failed us.
Charged with first-degree murder, Matthew Raymond admitted he killed 4 people on that August morning in 2018, but said he thought they were demons, not people. Raymond opened fire on civilians Donnie Robichaud and Bobby Lee Wright from his apartment window. He killed Fredericton police constables Sarah Burns and Rob Costello when they responded to help.
No talking at all. I want to remain silent.
In the following days, Raymond maintained he didn't want to talk about what happened. In court, he testified he believed demons were coming to kill him because the end times had come. His lawyer says he's shown remorse.
His grief that he's expressed with us has been like palpable in a physical sense, like almost like completely overcome with grief.
Tens of thousands of videos and photos found on Raymond's devices showed bizarre calculations, demonic numbers, and a fixation with conspiracy theories. The Crown argued his delusions weren't so intense that he didn't know what he was doing. They pointed to the fact he altered his rifle so it could hold double the ammunition. This law professor says the not criminally responsible verdict exists for a reason.
It's a fundamental part of our justice system that we only punish people if they know what they're doing. If they don't really know what they're doing, it's cruel to punish them.
And I want to make sure that this individual doesn't have the opportunity to hurt anyone ever again.
Raymond will be detained at a psychiatric hospital. A board will review his case each year, but he will not be released until there is no concern about public safety. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Fredericton.
And still in the Maritimes, back in April, Nova Scotia experienced 13 hours of chaos. A gunman disguised as a Mountie targeting people in what became Canada's worst mass shooting. But in the middle of the tragedy, dozens of shots were fired in a separate incident, and it has never been fully explained. Elizabeth McMillan with CBC's Fifth Estate has the story.
The morning of April 19th, Sharon McClellan was standing in her kitchen in her home across from the Onslow Fire Hall. From where she stood, she says she saw a vehicle pull over. 2 men emerged. She says one went to the ditch, the other behind a garbage bin at the edge of the Hall's parking lot.
And they put their guns up. They were long guns. I have no idea about guns, but they were long guns. And they started shooting. And I started freaking because I thought the shooter was there. I had no idea what was going on.
The two men were Mounties, searching for the Portapique gunman. They were firing in the direction of an RCMP cruiser stationed outside, near where a third officer stood with a bystander. Shots struck the fire hall.
I heard the shots. Somebody come running through the front door yelling, take cover, or get down, or shots fired, something to that effect. And then we took cover as best we could.
The Fifth Estate reviewed video surveillance from the hall. It shows a man in a safety vest, similar to one the Portapique gunman wore, darting inside at 10:21 a.m. Seconds later, an RCMP officer stood with his hands up next to his cruiser. One of the officers who shot at him approached, and they spoke briefly. The two officers who fired their weapons left the property about 3 minutes after they arrived without ever speaking to the people inside. McClellan said she later counted 32 bullet holes in the building.
Those are all near misses. There was people in there.
There were a handful of people hiding inside the hall at the time.
The fire truck saved their lives. That's my feeling.
But the men inside didn't know who was shooting at them or if it was safe to come out. They hid for an hour, searching for updates online.
We knew that the shooter was in the area, so our assumption, based on the RCMP Twitter feed and our hall being shot at, the obvious assumption was that the shooter was in the area.
7 months later, the firefighters remain shaken and still have questions.
That's what makes me angry. This is supposed to be a comfort zone. Most fire halls are comfort zones. I know anybody would give up their fire hall to comfort somebody. But for me to open it that day and the results after, I'm angry, yeah.
The firefighters say the RCMP picked up the bill for the damage. Repairs cost about $39,000. Nova Scotia's police watchdog agency is still investigating. Elizabeth McMillan, CBC News, Onslow.
And the full investigation airs in the season premiere of The Fifth Estate. Host Gillian Findlay takes you inside those deadly 13 hours in Nova Scotia. That's Monday, November 23rd, 9 p.m. on CBC Television and CBC Gem. Ottawa has released frightening numbers showing just how much worse the COVID-19 crisis could become. Coming up, what the Prime Minister is practically begging us to do.
And I was looking right back in her eyes, a beautiful woman. I was just so impressed. The tears were starting to come. Oh my God.
For 12 days in October, 4 provinces, 1 Northern Territory, all to celebrate the Queen's 50-year reign.
She's aged a little bit just like everybody else, but I still think she's very beautiful.
I thought she looked wonderful. And loved her hat.
Fans came out in the thousands, hoping for a glimpse of royalty on the monarch's Jubilee tour. CBC producer Manjula Viswasam followed the tour and remembers some of the highlights.
There were some really special moments on her trip. You know, there were some really mundane moments on her trip. I mean, how many bouquets of flowers can a woman get? But she wanted to do that, and the prince would help her. You know, he would help the children come to give her flowers. He would move them to the front of the crowd. The image I will always remember is of her at the Canucks and San Jose Sharks hockey game, where she dropped the ceremonial puck. And she's sort of standing there, sort of slightly lost, wondering what she's supposed to do. And it's not that she wasn't briefed or anything like that. It's just that it was just a very incongruous but charming moment. There were two other moments that were also interesting. One was in Winnipeg when her boat the motor died on her boat and it went astray, and they had to lash it to the other boat which had the escort on it and tow it in. And it was only a short interlude. It was about a 5-minute adventure. But when she got off that boat, she was beaming. I mean, she had something that wasn't scripted, that wasn't planned. So for that reason, she seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. And when she got off the boat, she apparently told the owner that was very interesting, which is a simple phrase, but coming from her, it's always more than that. The other interesting moment was when she had the Thanksgiving celebration up on Parliament Hill. She had to, battle with her rain gear and battle with the wind and the rain, and she had this person holding an umbrella over her, but she made it, like she pushed her way. And it was just this really feisty little character, and she's in her 70s, making her way to the Flame of the Unknown Soldier. It was pretty neat.
Wherever the future may take us, my admiration and affection for Canada and Canadians everywhere is and will always remain clear, strong, and sure.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. BC health officials are confirming another 516 cases of COVID-19 and 10 more deaths. The new case number, the lowest recorded daily number since November 5th. 227 patients are in hospital, 57 of them in intensive care.
I think it should have been done, and it's nice that they're doing it right now.
Latest numbers come one day after masks were made mandatory in BC. The social lockdown was extended province-wide and high-risk fitness activities suspended. Dr. Bonnie Henry has always encouraged wearing masks, but her order yesterday making them mandatory is being widely embraced by many people and businesses.
It's going to become more and more impossible, and we have shutdowns all around us of our peers. So,
under the new restrictions, high-risk indoor group fitness activities, including high-intensity interval training, hot yoga, and spin classes, have been suspended. Businesses fear a long-term closure will leave them financially unfit. Well, the Prime Minister made a plea to Canadians today, asking for vigilance on public health measures to try to contain the deadly spike in COVID cases. And as David Cochran tells us, his plea was aimed at provinces and cities as well.
So, I don't want to be here this morning. You don't want me to be here this morning. But here we are again.
Where we are is back to the beginning. The Prime Minister standing outside his house, urging Canadians to stay in theirs.
We're in a moment right now, or even with all the sacrifices I know Canadians have been making over these past 10 months, we are now going to have to really tighten up once again.
A Prime Minister's plea, fueled by new COVID projections that paint a dark picture. As CBC News first reported, the projections show cases rising to 20,000 a day if Canadians don't limit their contacts further, surging to 60,000 if they loosen up.
We are not on a good trajectory. So I think across the board or across Canada, we have to say that the time is now with urgency that we limit contacts.
Even the good scenarios could be more than the health system can bear, not just in terms of beds or ventilators, but healthcare workers who have been going nonstop.
And they're tired. They have been heroes. They have been going above and beyond anything they might have thought they were signing up for. We need to help them. We need to give them a break.
Canadians can do that by staying home, provinces and cities by tightening restrictions, with Ottawa offering financial support like a new rental subsidy that became law last night. Applications for needy businesses open on Monday. There's a top-up for those under lockdown.
Doing the things that protect our health are actually the best things to do to protect our economy.
These grim reminders come after positive news that vaccines could soon be ready, but even in the best case scenarios, those vaccines are still months away, which leaves the virus plenty of time to spread and deliver a second wave far worse than the first. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And while each new infection puts an individual at risk, the hundreds of cases hitting hospitals at the same time puts the system at risk. Over the past month, the number of COVID-19 patients in hospitals has doubled nationally to more than 2,000, and 1 in 5 is in intensive care fighting for their lives and increasingly losing that battle. Over the same period, the rate of deaths from the virus has more than tripled to an average of 70 a day. Vicadopia shows us how close Canada's hospitals are to the brink and what that means for Canadian lives.
With that new daily record of COVID-19 cases in Alberta, Edmonton's largest and busiest hospital is only getting busier.
The rate is picking up and the resources are not increasing at the same rate.
This ICU doctor isn't just worried about whether there are enough beds, but if there's enough hospital staff to treat all those patients.
We are projected to have over 100 patients by the end of November. And with exponential growth, our ICU resources will be completely overwhelmed by the end of December if nothing changes.
Right now, there are more than 2,000 people with COVID-19 laying in hospital beds in Canada. More than half are in Quebec and Ontario. But per 100,000 people, the situation is just as bad in the West, much of which went unscathed during the first wave. Overall, the total number of COVID hospitalizations is still only half of what it was at the peak of the first wave, but the situation is changing quickly. Meanwhile, many Canadian hospitals are racing to catch up on non-urgent surgeries, but delays are piling up. Charlie needs surgery to separate his small fingers, which were fused together at birth. It's been delayed twice.
So the longer that these fingers stay attached, the longer the chance there is for them to not grow at all. That has a huge impact on how his hand would function.
In Ontario, another freeze on surgeries could be coming.
We are now teetering on the edge of having to delay scheduled surgeries.
The province has crossed a key threshold of patients in intensive care, which would make saving lives that much more difficult.
We would be struggling dramatically, and particularly struggling if ICU care was not unlike what was predicted in Europe in Wave 2, where a significant number of people required intensive care.
Which would make saving lives that much more difficult. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up tonight, a different kind of pandemic shopping. What installment payments will mean for shoppers in 2020. 6:42, there's a live look at Science World in Vancouver tonight. The weekend is here. Are we going to get a break from the rain on the south coast? Johanna will tell us. Her forecast is coming next.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Retail sales grew for the 5th straight month in December, according to Statistics Canada. But some economists are warning of a downturn this holiday season because of the latest COVID-19 surge. Those who do shop will be able to spread out their payments. Jacqueline Hansen tells us about the new app called Afterpay.
There's a future where you're in charge.
The pitch from Afterpay, one of several installment payment companies targeting millennials with the option to buy anything from jewelry to clothing now and worry about paying for it mostly later. No credit check, no interest charges, and in Canada, no late fees either.
The mission and vision that we stand for being, fundamentally the opposite of a traditional credit provider, one that will always be interest free.
Shoppers sign up for an Afterpay account with a credit or debit card. When they make a purchase, they pay 25% up front. Then every 2 weeks, 25% more is automatically deducted until the purchase is paid off. If there are insufficient funds and a payment is missed, Afterpay disables the account and tries to contact the shopper, but it says it doesn't use collection agencies.
Customers are overwhelmingly responsible.
My daughters love the prints.
Retailers pay Afterpay a fee to take on the risk, as much as 6% of the purchase price.
Providing flexibility, giving access to a different way for a customer to pay in a time where it could be quite challenging for them seemed like a small cost to us in the long run.
Vancouver-based Native Shoes has offered Afterpay online since it launched in Canada in late August. It says about 1 in 20 customers use it.
We see that the average transaction actually increases about 25% when Afterpay is used.
If people could ring up. This certified financial planner says retailers are likely banking on customers spending more to offset the fees.
That's a little unsettling when you think about it.
And she says managing bi-weekly payments could add extra stress and lead to other debt.
If your spending money has been reduced so much, are you going to start resorting to credit at that point to get through for groceries and gas and whatever it is that you need to buy?
Welcome to the future.
Potential consequences to consider that could attach a cost to installment payments, even if companies offering them say there isn't one. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
A state of emergency has been declared in Russia's Far East because of ice, frigid temperatures, and heavy snow. Authorities say 2 days of rain and snow formed a coating of ice on roads, power lines, and trees up to 12 millimeters. That's half an inch thick. The power is likely to be out for several days there. Regional authorities have mobilized all available resources, including the Navy and Army, to try to help find ways to assist residents in dealing with the severe cold. Locals say they haven't seen a storm like this one in 30 years. That's a lot of ice in Russia's Far East. Joe's here now.
You said it.
With the forecast, we like to keep our ice in our drinks, I think. That's better place, better place for it.
That's how I like my ice as well, Mike.
There
We
you
do
go.
share that, yes. Ice storms are one of the scariest weather phenomenon that I know of, and I know we can sometimes get it out in the valley. No ice in the forecast other than drinks as we head into the weekend. Let me show you the radar, though. Things are moving quickly since we last spoke, already seeing clearing behind the edge of the latest round of rain. Pretty heavy, though, in through eastbound Port Moody out towards Tri-Cities and out towards Chilliwack. That's where the rain is still coming down. The model's picking up on this quite well. This is sort of a current snapshot, but in model form. And you can see that green tail that extends down through Victoria. That's the rain, the tail image that we're getting right now. It's going to keep tracking inland. This is also what's bringing the heavy snow to the Coquihalla tonight. It will track quite quickly eastward. And then look at this, a break between the two systems. I ran this right through to early Sunday morning. It's not an all blue sky Saturday. The next system that approaches will take its time to get down into Metro Vancouver for Sunday afternoon, I'm thinking. So you might even get by with a dry start to your Sunday as well. Those showers, though, will cross down from the northwest filling in for Sunday into early next week. So again, not all blue sky, but I think we will see some good breaks tomorrow and a dry Sunday, even if it is a cloudier one. Look at the snowfall forecast right across the province, those dark blues up towards the central and northern coastal sections, close to that 40-centimeter mark. And while most of that is in through the higher elevations, Kitimat under the snowfall warning for up to 20 centimeters through tomorrow. It has been snowing a lot in through that region, Terrace, Stewart, Kitimat for the past week. You've been seeing a good 5 to 10 centimeters every day. So things are really piling up in the north. I know what you're thinking. Yes, La Nina is coming true. Of course, it's the overall trend of the season, but so far it has been off to a snowy start for the entire province. Quick look at the temperatures tomorrow. 2 out towards the Kootenays, 3 for Kelowna. Looking to see generally sunshine for everyone across the eastern half of the province. The west, though, dealing with the exiting low and the approaching cold front. That'll be the story for us on Sunday. And speaking of cold front, notice our temperatures do drop as that system approaches for Sunday. Depending on the timing of the cold front, we might actually get a bit warmer on Sunday before we notice that drop. And look for gusty winds on Sunday as well. At this point, the change in the weather pattern we've been talking about arrives on Wednesday. Still a little bit of uncertainty as to when exactly we get that sunshine, but I think we'll get it for at least a few days with some cooler temperatures, but having to get through a soggy start to next week. All pretty seasonal as we round out our wettest month of the year, Mike.
All right. Well, most of us have tried to be patient for a long time, so we can hopefully wait till Wednesday. We can do it. We can do it. All right, Joe, we'll talk to you after the break. Right now, bringing color to the commute, we're going to show you how Edmonton artists are livening up LRT stations and telling the city's stories in the process. That's next.
To dinner at Jim Blackwood's house in the country. On the menu?
These are chicken dogs. There's no salt or any additives in them.
Turns out I'm not eating dinner, but the guests are starting to arrive for the feast.
Up. Come on. There you go. Okay, where are these fellas? Come here, you.
Jim Blackwood is known as the Raccoon Whisperer. Every night, the raccoons come, about 25 of them.
You gonna come? There you go. For me.
Someone made him this sign, Jim's Diner. It's a diner for raccoons, and Jim is the head chef.
Where's Buddy at?
He's named all the raccoons and somehow can tell them apart.
Girl, here, Blackie, here. There you go.
Jim was posting on YouTube for 9 years. This was the first one, and yes, people watched, but he was hardly an internet sensation. He's gone viral now. This recent post has been viewed over 11 million times.
You ready?
His videos started taking off in the midst of the global pandemic.
Oh my God! It's the COVID. It started coming alive in July.
This started quite by accident, with a mother and her baby showing up. It grew to things like this, orphaned baby raccoons after their mother was hit by a car. That's Jim nursing them every 3 hours. He did releases back into the wild, but darn it, those raccoons kept returning to Jim's Diner and the porch.
The animals have come here like they got no mother. And
the Raccoon Whisperer doesn't recommend that you try this at home. He believes wildlife should stay wild.
Oh no, I don't recommend it. This is an unusual thing that's happened to me, and I hope someday that they don't show up,
It was Jim's wife, Jane, who started the raccoon feeding. When she died in 2003, she made him promise he wouldn't abandon feeding her rescues.
What are you doing? I'm going to hide it in my hand. Where is it? But I didn't know it was going to go this far. Now it's getting kind of tedious because, the emails, like 14 hours a day on the computer. That's what I'm putting in now. I try to keep contact with everybody.
How many emails a day do you get?
About 3,000.
Now, with 328,000 fans subscribing to his YouTube channel, the revenue from the ads is paying for the raccoon's grub, which runs $2,000 a month.
This came from Pittsburgh. They took a blanket and they put all the pictures.
His legion of fans mail him more raccoon paraphernalia than I knew existed. This T-shirt just arrived in the mail. There are paintings, statues, and stuffed singing raccoons. Retired from the RCMP, Jim Blackwood has worn many hats in his 67 years. Now it's crocheted raccoon hats for this grandpa.
You like my new hat?
And nights on the porch feeding and talking to his raccoon friends.
Back up.
Colleen Jones, CBC News, Churchville.
Take your cookie. There you go. Okay, I'm just going to dump these.
Okay, an art project in Edmonton is aiming to make commuters' time on transit a little more interesting. For 3.5 years, creative minds have been hard at work painting murals around the city.
And now 5 LRT stations, dozens of murals later, the Paint the Rails project is changing track. Here's a sneak peek at one of the stops on the tour.
We're at Kingsway Transit Center in front of a mural called Stories That Weave Us as part of the Paint the Rails program. This particular mural, it's one in a series of 5 murals for the Paint the Rails project. This is a collaborative piece. I'm one of the co-lead artists. The other one was Carla Ray Taylor. And this mural is a collection of stories. And we wanted to talk about the long, rich history of Edmonton through the lens of 3 distinct communities and talk about the important role that they've played in this great city that we share. The 3 communities we spoke to for this mural was Shiloh Baptist Church, and it was Al Rashid Mosque, and it was Temple Beth Ora Synagogue. And so we talked to them about their history in Edmonton, their story of migration to Edmonton, how their communities have grown and changed, and then really took those stories and messages and ideas and found the commonalities.
It always makes me feel really good to be here. All of the murals have a lot of significance for me, but this one features one of my community. So I'm Jewish, and one of the communities that we sat with and heard stories from was the Jewish community, and so I see part of my story here. What's been really interesting through the project is to understand the breadth of diversity going far back into our city's history.
We've heard some really fascinating, interesting, really memorable stories, and some of them were able to translate into a mural like this, and then some were harder to translate visually. So we have a legacy book coming that will help capture more of these stories and will become the home for the stories that didn't make it into the murals, and so we can share those and make sure that all of Edmonton and all of Alberta really knows where we come from. We need some help though. We're looking for some fundraising support. So the type of help we need is mostly in dollar form, but we want to make sure we're giving back. And so for supporting us, you can get some really cool things like a Paint the Rails coloring book.
It is a tool that we are using to help raise funds to make this children's legacy book, which is a much larger kind of project, a reality, so that we can get all this incredible wealth of information out into the community.
We have a pretty ambitious fundraising target, but part of that reason is we want to be able to make the book accessible. So we want to print a lot of copies to give out to schools so that everyone can have access to this rich history.
Yeah, they're nice. A little color is good anywhere, particularly I would suggest in Edmonton, which some may see as maybe a bit gray. What's the weather like there tonight, Joe?
You know, I did have a look, and it is currently -11 with the wind chill with flurries. So I think a bit of color is perfect. For that kind of weather. Just saying. I love murals, though. We should do one on the side of your house.
Yeah, they look like on the side of the, oh yeah, good idea. Go for it.
Exactly.
You have a good weekend. Thanks, Joe. And thank you
too.
for watching. You can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Tina Lovegreen in for Dan Burrett tonight at 11 after the National. Have a good weekend.